Hey everyone, and a huge warm welcome to Integratekh. We're the channel that's all about taking the absolute coolest new findings from the tech and science world and, well, breaking them down so they're actually easy and fun to understand. And today, today we have a truly mind-blowing breakthrough to share. We are diving into a brand new research paper that shows how a massive, dirty industrial problem might just be solved by something sitting in your kitchen cabinet right now.
Okay, so let's dive into this. To get why this breakthrough is such a big deal, we first got to talk about the lifeblood of these underground drills. Industry folks call it drilling mud. Now, you can basically think of drilling mud just like the motor oil in your car's engine. If you don't have oil, your engine seizes up from all that heat and friction, right? Well, without drilling mud continuously flowing around that drill bit, the machinery would literally melt or just get permanently wedged in solid rock. This fluid cools everything down, cleans out the rock cuttings, and acts as a super essential lubricant.
Now, this drilling mud isn't just, dirty water. It actually needs a very specific, thick texture so it can carry those heavy rock cuttings all the way back up to the surface. And the magic ingredient that gives it that structure? It's a natural substance called bentonite clay. See, when you mix bentonite clay with water, it swells up, like it expands to almost 10 times its original size. This gives the water this perfect, thick, muddy consistency that is absolutely essential for the whole operation to work. But there's a pretty massive catch.
And this is exactly the headache engineers are dealing with. When that bentonite clay gets pushed deep underground into intense heat, we're talking around 70 degrees Celsius, it starts to misbehave. The clay particles actually lose this microscopic protective film of water they usually have, and their positive and negative edges start grabbing onto each other. They clump together like a super fragile house of cards. It's exactly like what happens if you dump cornstarch into hot soup. It just rapidly, uncontrollably thickens up. In a drilling operation, this sudden clumping makes the mud dangerously thick, which forces the pumps to work way too hard and puts a multi-million-dollar drill at serious risk of getting stuck.
So how do we fix this hot soup problem right now? Well, the industry relies on chemical thinners. The big one they use is called potassium lignite. And look, while it does work, it comes with a lot of baggage. It's chemically synthesized, it can be highly toxic to the environment, and it's incredibly expensive. So we're looking at a massive gap here. The industry desperately needs a way to thin out this mud that doesn't cost an absolute fortune and doesn't pollute the planet. They need a green alternative.
So how in the world did scientists solve this massive industrial problem? Well, what if I told you the answer to stabilizing multi-million-dollar drilling operations isn't made in some high-tech, expensive lab? What if it's literally grown on a hillside? Yeah, researchers looked to nature. And the solution they found? It might just be hiding right inside your teacup.
The researchers decided to look at tea plants. But here's the cool part. They didn't use the premium young tea leaves that we normally drink. No, they went and gathered the mature, aged tea leaves from the lower stems of the plant. These are leaves that farmers literally prune off and just throw away. They have absolutely zero commercial value. We're talking about an everyday agricultural waste product. And the researchers wanted to see, hey, can we extract something powerful from this literal trash?
And the way they prepared it was beautifully simple and totally eco-friendly. First, they just sun-dried these discarded leaves. Then they ground them up into a fine powder. Next, they essentially brewed a massive, super concentrated pot of tea by boiling the powder in distilled water. Finally, they just filtered out the leftover plant fibers. And what they were left with was this dark, liquid extract. No harsh chemical synthesis, no crazy lab equipment, just basic, natural extraction.
Now, what is truly fascinating is what that boiling process actually pulls out of those leaves. It extracts these naturally occurring compounds called polyphenols. Now, you might have heard of polyphenols before. They're the antioxidants that make drinking tea so good for you. But when you put them in a heavy industrial context, these polyphenols act like nature's microscopic shields.
Remember that hot soup clumping problem we talked about earlier? Well, when the researchers added their tea leaf extract to the mud, those polyphenols immediately went to work. They coated the edges of the clay particles, which effectively neutralized their static charge. So without that charge constantly pulling them together, the clay particles just couldn't build that clumpy house of cards anymore. The tea extract acted as this perfect, natural thinner, keeping the mud beautifully fluid. And get this, it worked perfectly even when they cranked the heat all the way up to 70 degrees Celsius.
But of course, proving something works in theory is one thing. The researchers needed to see how their natural tea extract actually stacked up against the heavyweight champion, that toxic, expensive, industry-standard chemical thinner. So they set up a direct head-to-head test.
They ran them both under grueling, high-temperature conditions to see exactly which one could keep the drilling mud flowing better.
And honestly, the results were absolutely staggering. When you look at the performance data, the tea extract consistently kept the fluid much thinner than the toxic chemical did. Across the board, this everyday agricultural waste actually beat the synthetic chemical. It kept the mud way more manageable, and it drastically reduced the amount of pressure the pumps needed to keep the fluid moving. Nature didn't just match the fancy chemical lab, it totally beat it.
But they didn't stop there. They also tested lubricity, basically how slippery the mud was. And by adding just a tiny 3% concentration of this natural tea leaf extract, the overall friction in the drilling system dropped by a staggering 40.7%. Let that sink in. Nearly half the friction just completely wiped out. As they added more of the tea extract into the mix, the friction just plummeted. And the science behind why this happens is so cool. See, the tea extract contains these specific things called catechol groups, and they are incredible at binding to metal. So when the mud flows over the steel drilling machinery, these compounds literally create a coating right on the metal itself. It's ultra-thin, highly adhesive, and super slippery. It basically acts like a microscopic suit of armor, drastically cutting down the wear and tear on the drill.
And as if being a better, thinner, and an amazing lubricant wasn't enough, there was another incredible win. When you drill, this sticky mud can build up on the porous rock walls and create a thick mud cake. If that cake gets too thick, the drill pipe gets completely jammed. While incredibly, adding the tea extract reduced that sticky mud buildup by over 44%. That means cleaner well walls, less fluid leaking into the rock, and a significantly lower risk of getting a multi-million-dollar drill permanently stuck.
So why does this all matter to us and to the future of technology? Because this one single finding creates a massive ripple effect across a global industry. Think about it. We are taking agricultural waste, literal trash that farmers throw away, and we're recycling it. In doing that, we are completely replacing the need for harsh, toxic synthetic chemicals. That instantly lowers the cost of industrial drilling, while simultaneously protecting the environment from toxic runoff. I mean, it is a literal win-win for both business and the earth.
The researchers summed it up perfectly in their paper. They said, tea leaf extract can be effectively used as a multifunctional, non-toxic, and low-cost thinning agent for water-based drilling fluids. And I think it just proves such a brilliant point. Sometimes the absolute best technological solutions to our biggest, dirtiest industrial challenges aren't found by creating brand new synthetic chemicals in a lab. Sometimes the most powerful innovations are simple, natural, and quite literally growing in our own backyards.
And that, my friends, is the incredible secret power of tea. If you found this explainer on nature's heavy-duty engineering as fascinating as I did, please do us a huge favor and hit that subscribe button to join the Integratekh community. Give this a big like and drop your thoughts down in the comments, because it leaves us with one massive question. If discarded tea leaves can revolutionize a multi-billion-dollar heavy industry, what other world-changing solutions are just sitting in our compost bins right now? Stay tuned to Integratekh for more. Until next time, keep learning.